Welcome to our channel. We use many different methods to preserve food here in our homestead. And the one we use most now is freeze drying. We've got many different freeze-dried items here that I freeze-dried about 2 years ago. However, I've never really taste tested it, so that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. Some of these I freeze-dried raw, like the eggs. I've got some potatoes, some green beans, and those need to be cooked, so I will be cooking with those. However, some of them are pre-made and they only need hot water added to them. Some of them you can eat raw, of course, like fruit, like these grapes and apples. And some of them, like this pasta sauce, I can rehydrate and eat it by itself, or I can add it to some noodles. Okay, let's get going and I'll tell you how each one of these tastes after being freeze-dried a few years back. Now I have to tell you something before I start cooking this, is that this doesn't have any preservatives in it. It's simply freeze-dried. So if you see the pre-made freeze-dried stuff in the store and it's got a whole bunch of preservatives in it, it's really not necessary. That's a huge advantage of doing your own freeze drying. And if you're interested in a freeze dryer, we've got a link to one down in the description below. You know, anything you can snack on, like the fruit, is easy to just open it back up and just snack on it. You don't need to do anything special with it. This one is sealed down pretty tight because of that oxygen absorber. You could hear that. And 2 years ago, grapes are normally chewy even after freeze drying, so it's kind of like a jelly. They're fantastic. You can hear them, they're still hard, but they have lost a touch of sweetness. So we're gonna put these back together like that. We'll probably have to eat these quicker now that I open them. Now let's get into these scalloped potatoes. And what we've done is we've just heated up water in our kettle. I'm just gonna put a portion here in the bowl, rehydrate it for a few minutes, and see what happens. Okay, I've got my kettle of water. Let's do these scalloped potatoes in first. And unfortunately, the original bags that I got with my Harvest Right don't have a Ziploc resealer here. So once I open these, I'm gonna have to use them all. Okay, let's get the water going on these. Sometimes you're not gonna know how much that you're really gonna need. So just go slow at the beginning. And at the same time, I'm also gonna do the pasta sauce and the bean soup. Now, with the ones at the store, it'll tell you how much water to use, usually. But I'd still be cautious because some of them have too much water that they have in their recipe, and it really doesn't turn out that well at all. Okay, let's add some water to our bean soup. And now we'll pop open our pasta sauce. We're gonna do one piece and seal it back up. And let's get our water on our pasta sauce here. Just a little bit to get it going. We'll start mixing that pasta sauce. That one rehydrated almost instantly. Be careful how much water you put in your sauce if you don't want it too watery. The color is a little muted. So from what I originally put in there, those tomatoes were from our garden. Before I start stirring these with this spoon, I'm gonna taste test this one for you. Okay, here's that pasta sauce. Let's give it a taste and see how it is. Wow. It still really has an intense flavor. It is highly concentrated from the freeze drying process. I'm gonna add a little bit more water to it because it is very, very flavorful, very, very powerful, even after years. It's good. It's not like fresh sauce though. It's different, but it's incredibly flavorful. Let's see how those potatoes and that soup are doing. Now, depending on what they are, you might have to give them a little bit longer time to rehydrate. So the potatoes here, I can tell that they're not soaking up the water as fast as something like the sauce. So I'm gonna let this one sit for a little bit longer. Okay, here is our bean soup. Now this is obviously a little bit easier to reconstitute and rehydrate. Let's try this out. Again, 2 years old, extremely flavorful, and it tastes like the original soup that I made Almost. It's got a touch different flavor and I can't put my finger on it, honestly. I'm not sure. It's still good. It's still the soup I made. And I would eat it with no problem. Now the consistency also is similar to what I freeze dried, but it's not exactly the same because over time, if you're moving your packages around at all, the things that are freeze dried get powdered. So even some of the beans have gotten broken and kind of crumbled, and they have made the soup more like a stew, which is cool. I could put more water in it, but it's good just the way it is. Now it's time for these scalloped potatoes. I'm gonna try to get a piece here with the cheese on it and everything. This is interesting. So the potatoes have rehydrated well and there's no sponginess to them. The cheese is also rehydrated well. Now I'm noticing a trend is that the flavors are muted. I usually season my food well when I make it, but it just doesn't taste like fresh. And it's not going to. And that's okay, because in an emergency situation, you've got food that is still highly nutritious. And that is one thing that is great about a freeze dryer, is it doesn't destroy the nutrients that are in the food. I think you're ending with 96 or 97% of the nutrients intact in freeze-dried food, which is amazing. Now that we've tried the ones that I pre-made, let's try all the raw foods that I made. So we've got potatoes, green beans, I think green peppers, and eggs. I'm hungry, I didn't have lunch either. So for each of these, we need to rehydrate them first before we cook them. So here we've got some green peppers. Let's get these all going. These are all from our garden and our farm. So this is a beautiful thing about freeze drying also, is you can preserve really easily your harvest. So whatever it is, you don't have to waste at all. Some are gonna rehydrate much quicker than the other ones. Probably like these green beans. The potatoes do take a little bit longer. So what I noticed when I opened up all of these is that the freeze drying process worked perfectly well. Everything is still very dry. So there's no mold growth or anything like that. So that tells me the machine did its job and took out all of the moisture. So this is just going to be very simple. I'm just going to use salt, pepper, and olive oil to cook all of this together. We're heating up our pan. Let's get a little olive oil in there. Turn our heat down. First thing I'm gonna add are the potatoes. Let's season these, a little salt, some pepper, and let those start to brown up a little bit. So you'll notice some vegetables and fruits will rehydrate at a different rate. So this one didn't need all this water, so I need to drain this off before I put it in the pan. We can add our peppers at this time. Okay, I've got the beans, peppers, and potatoes cooked through. They are caramelized, and I'm gonna set those aside on a plate while I cook the eggs separately, and then I will just mix them together. Here go the eggs. Very interesting consistency. It's kind of like a, I don't know how to describe it, like an oatmeal? I'm not even sure. Let's just try to scramble this up, actually. Hit this with a little salt. Also with a little pepper. Well, they certainly look like scrambled eggs. We'll see how the flavor compares to freshly scrambled eggs. I'm sure it's going to be different, but we'll see how different. The color's a little bit off. It looks a little gray-ish, but we'll see how they taste and flavor. As you can see, color of the eggs is off. The beans didn't rehydrate very fast at all, so I did put them in there and they are a little less hydrated than I would have liked. The potatoes did get a nice caramelization on them. Let's see how these eggs taste first, because the color is a bit off. Well, it certainly has the consistency. That's dead on for like a soft scrambled egg, and that's what I like. So there's some sponginess in there, not like an actual styrofoam or a sponge, but how eggs bounce a little bit. The flavor it's good, it's just different. You know, it honestly tastes very fishy, and I don't know why that is. But again, survival situation, we're not cooking fresh food. Okay, let's go over to the potatoes, peppers, and green beans. Oh yeah. Now that's dead on. Everything tastes as it should. Even the green beans, they aren't as hydrated as they should be. Like the cells wouldn't absorb the water as much as they could. So they're a little bit tough. And maybe that's just me and not leaving them long enough, but I left these 4 times longer than everything else. But the potatoes and peppers are fantastic. I couldn't tell that these were rehydrated, honestly. I'm gonna finish that off pretty quick. So there was something at the beginning of the video that you didn't see me taste, and that's right, it's the apples. I dove into that jar of apples and they were completely devoid of flavor. It was just like eating styrofoam. But what I think happened with that is my kids were in and out of that jar so much, the oxygen absorber just quit and didn't work anymore, and they sat in an oxygenated environment. And for freeze-dried food, that is not good. They were also a little spongy and they weren't crisp like a freeze-dried apple is after it's just been freeze-dried or stored properly. So that's a big thing. Make sure that all of your items are completely dried and they are stored properly with oxygen absorbers in the proper packets. And these Mylar bags are the best. These are a good backup and they can work, but be careful when putting them in mason jars. So pretty much everything we ate today tasted great after 2 years of being freeze-dried here in our own house. I've done a lot of videos on our freeze dryer, and there are a lot of little tricks that are helpful for you that I mention in all of these videos. So make sure you check those out. Now go check out this video right here, which is our video on how to initially set up your Harvest Right freeze dryer. Have a beautiful, blessed day. We'll see you next time. Bye.